Hello, and welcome to Movie Mess 101. I'm doing something a little different today. I'm starting a YouTube channel, but this is not a channel introduction. This is a review. I'm doing another series uh, of shorter video reviews that I thought would be quite fun to do. So let's see how this goes. I've updated my sort of Twitter. I used to have an old Twitter, and now I've sort of updated that to coincide with my blog, Movie Mess 101. And this is just a way to get more reviews out. You can also sort of follow me on Twitter at TomButton19, and the new Twitter account, mmess01 at mmess101. So this is a review. Let's just jump straight into it. It is Raya and the Last Dragon. This comes to us from Walt Disney. It was put onto Disney Plus, their premium. So you have to when it came out, you had to pay. I think it was £20 to get it, but now it's on streaming. Now it's put onto their sort of streaming as a whole. So if you have Disney Plus, it's free with the subscription. The film is directed by Don Hall and Carlos López Estrada, and stars Kelly Marie Tran, Gemma Chan, Daniel Day Kim, and Awkwafina. The story is kind of reminiscent of Avatar: The Last Airbender, if you've seen that animated show. Basically follows a land which has been broken up into different kind of factions of sort of warring tribes. This sort of land is split up into, just sort of kind of like similar to, as I say, like nations almost. It's very, very similar to The Last Airbender. But the story is that Raya belongs to one of these tribes, Heart, and is when she's very young gets named it is the guardian of the stone. The stone, or the gem. The gem comes from dragons, and basically 500 years ago there was a force came over the land and turned everybody to stone, including most of the dragons. But there still might be one dragon left out there. When she is very young, her father, when this force attacks, her father is turned to stone, and she has now sort of a quest to put back together this jewel, which was destroyed by all the tribes in an effort to bring everybody back together. So the story goes that when she grows up, Raya is tasks herself with finding all the gem pieces and bringing harmony back to a land formerly known. I was just thinking of it. Kumandra was the name of the land. So yeah, and so on her way, she finds that there is one dragon left. Her name is Sisu, and they sort of pal together with a whole load of other people to basically bring balance to the land. It's very, very Avatar, but yeah, we'll get into plot specifics later. It stars Kelly Marie Tran, Gemma Chan, Daniel Day Kim, and Awkwafina. So let's just go through all the sort of the performances first, because that's how I like to do things. So Kelly Marie Tran plays Raya. She's very quirky. She's very sort of battle hardened. Sort of grew up in kind of a peaceful land, but she's very well skilled in sort of like martial arts, and can handle herself really, really well in a one-on-one duel with folks. but what guides her is her kind of sense of responsibility to the land. The Kumandra, sort of the reforging of Kumandra was a dream of her father, and she basically wants to basically recapture that in a land that is divided amongst these factions who don't really sort of trust one another. I think Tran works really well as Raya. I think she has that sort of youthful energy to her. She's kind of like comedic, kind of sort of like almost sort of all over the place. But when I mean, as well as everybody else, when sort of things do happen that are more are more emotional, she can hit that kind of range. And what I like about her is that, you know, this is like one of the only other first times I've seen Tran in a film. The last films I've seen her in was the last two Star Wars films, which weren't really great in my opinion. But this is I think she's much more comfortable here in sort of in animation form, in voice form. And she just sort of carries herself really, really well, yeah, is great. The second one that I need to bring up is Awkwafina. Awkwafina plays the last dragon, Sisu, and sort of Sisu is basically resurrected by Raya, and it's kind of like more all over the place. She's kind of like doesn't know what's going on in the land that she once knew, and basically has to sort of reacclimatize to a new kind of land. And it's very sort of difficult for her to come to terms with the fact that her brothers and sisters, the other dragons, are gone, and kind of finds it hard to realize. But she has a good spirit, she has a good heart, and she has a good sense of comedy to her. I think Sisu is the most comedic out of all the characters in this film. She's very kind of like bombastic, but like sweet in sort of a lot of ways. You find yourself like kind of like thinking at first, maybe she's a bit too much, and that's what I did see in a lot of reviews, that she might be a bit too much for some people, and I did think that as well at some point, at some points. But I think Awkwafina does a really sort of like good job again at the more emotional moments in her performance. It's kind of a performance of two halves, which kind of I don't know, it's kind of really weird, because like she's very fun loving, she's very bouncy, very energetic, and then, you know, when the story sort of calls for it, she can be, you know, very kind of wise and very loving to certain people, especially connection grows between her and Raya, which kind of hit me kind of differently, kind of hard in a lot of ways. Next is Gemma Chan. She plays Raya's adversary, who they grew up together. She comes from a rival faction, and she has dreams of her own of making their land called Fang the most powerful of all the tribes, and she was basically stop at nothing to achieve that goal, and basically so that's what her character is about. I think she not but no means the weakest character, but I think that they could have done more with her struggle, because although like she wants, you know, what her mother wants, this you know, to all the power in the world, and she kind of sort of fights. She's kind of like knows where her place should be by her mother's side, but she's also kind of a little bit flip, flip flops between, hardened warrior and kind of like a more sort of like softer character. There's no, Gemma Chan is very, very good, very, very sort of like convincing as a kind of a force, really, like a really sort of like stop at nothing kind of warrior whose goal in life is to just preserve her sort of family and her land, which isn't a bad, like which isn't a bad which isn't a bad goal, but in a world that's so divided, it's kind of like every land for itself. So she has very sort of strong feelings about that. I think that she's very good at the hardened warrior, and she can get like she's kind, and I like, again, she's not the most emotional characters, but it's, again, it's like, there is emotion in this film. It's mostly comedy, but there's some emotion in this film. She's kind of like, yeah, I don't know, she's kind of fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with her. I think that the weakest performance, the fact that he's not around for very much, is Daniel Day Kim. He plays Raya's father, who is very early on, who is very who is incapacitated very, very early on. So he's not even around for most of the film. He has a very sort of specific goal. He wants to reunite the country, the Kumandra, and that's basically it. He's very loving. He's very caring towards Raya at the start, but it's really Raya's journey. I don't think he's good at the father figure. He's very, as I said, he's very caring and very loving, but there's just not enough. I know that there's a reason why they had him in the story, because he's her parent and she has to go and save him. Very Disney, very action, very sort of action film plot sort of line with him. But there's not much to say about him. Like, he has a couple of lines in the start and then a couple of lines at like near the end, which is very, you can't really judge a performance on just weird stuff like that. But he does well with what he's given. There are some more characters that accompany Raya on her journey, including a boy who's a sort of a restaurateur. He's on a boat. They sort of like travel sort of up the river to sort of find more gem pieces. He is kind of more of like the comic relief. They're all kind of comic relief, but I'd say he's the most comic relief out of all of them. There is a baby character who says nothing, but like is very, very weird. Like, I think I really connected to it because she has like animal friends, and like, I don't know, there's something about like babies and sort of like animals that's like really cute, and they're kind of the baby is kind of like a con artist in this weird, in a weird way. But again, that's more of a sort of like the comic relief kind of thing. So all the acting is like very, very, all the voice acting, I should say, is very strong. I think it's Tran's best I've seen so far. I think she really sort of commands that role. And Awkwafina is just great anyway, whether she's in live action or animated form. So the next thing I want to get onto is sort of the land itself and sort of how the sort of like the story plays out. The land is very much inspired by sort of like Southeast Asian. Southeast Asia. There's a lot of the first thing to say about the film is it's very, very pretty. It's a modern age Disney film, so of course everything looks very, very crisp, even sort of like the materials on people's clothing, just you know, sort of textures of grass or, you know, desert or anything like that. It looks really crisp, looks very you know, just, I don't know, just very much real, not as real as say sort of Soul, because Soul had some very interesting sort of animation techniques. You still understand that this is like a very much a fantasy land and a fantasy story. But like the animation, especially for Sisu, I loved Sisu's look. Very sort of a very kind of I mean, she's a water dragon, so she blends very well with water, and the water is very beautiful. And sort of her look and her sort of overall aesthetic is very nice to look at. The great thing I want to say is there are battles in this film. Raya is a warrior, and has been a warrior since birth. And so when stuff goes down, she's going to have to fight some folk, whether that's for training, whether she's training or fighting, you know, sort of bandits, or even her big adversary. And that's very good to look at. It uses like a lot of like, you know, sort of, I don't know what kind of martial arts that is, but whatever it is, it looks really nice. It's very fluid, very kinetic. I really sort of, and it enhances the, like, whenever a fight scene happened, it really sort of picked up my enjoyment and really picked up my like my sort of adrenaline. It's very sort of, and you feel it more because there's sort of like stakes to it. Raya is sort of like fighting for the reunification of the world, and people try to stop her, but she keeps going and going and going. Very resilient character, and that's what I think like makes her, going back to her, makes her very interesting and very much a good character, is that she wants what her father wants, and she will do sort of anything to secure that peace. So yeah, the fighting is great to look at, great energy, and of course just brings up my excitement quite a lot. And sort of, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was its messages, because, you know, it has messages of trust, of trust is its main its main kind of thing, because it's, you know, again, set in a world where people are divided, and are very distrustful of one another. And Sisu kind of acts as the dragon. Sisu acts as kind of like a peacekeeper. She's going on about how she wants to sort of help the world, and sort of says basically to characters like, you know, basically wants people to get along, which is a very commendable thing. Some people said that these messages of trust are very you know, kind of ham-fisted and kind of forced, and sometimes they can be. There's a lot said about it. There's a lot, you know, there's a lot of just there's no sort of hiding there's no hiding the message in the film. It's very blatant, and I do think that they could have done more to sort of like not disguise it, but like, you know, bring it back a little bit. But the whole sort of thing, there are, you know, it's like people, there's a confrontation near the beginning where something happens, and it's all to do with trust, and that's kind of Raya's kind of thing, because she keeps saying on her journey, don't trust anyone. They're just out to get people, out to get us. But Sisu's very against that, and she wants to help others, and she'll even if it gets her into trouble, even if she's wrong, because she sometimes is wrong about trusting people, it's a kind of a very grey world. Some of it can be a little bit heavy-handed, but I think it pulls it off quite well in the end. Another thing, well, a kind of a negative thing that I want to bring up, because it's mostly positive for me. The negative thing I want to bring up is the fact that the comedy and the seriousness, the emotion, whilst they're very good not practically, separately. Once, you know, there are comedic bits and then it goes into sort of more serious territory. Whilst they're very good sort of like separately, and you know, are quite good, I think there's nothing wrong with blending those two tones, but I think with that tone, with the blending of those, I think it's kind of, it doesn't really work. The tone doesn't really work for the story it's trying to tell, because the story is very kind of serious and very, every character's out for something, out for each other and things like that, classic Disney stuff. And then you get like the moments of comedy, which aren't bad. I'm not going to say that I laughed at quite a few jokes in the film, but I think that the contrasting tones of comedy and the serious they try to blend it as best they can, and sometimes work, but most of the times it doesn't, and it can really sort of like pull people sort of like out, because there can be a serious thing going on, and then it can be hit with somebody hits with a comedic line, or even sort of like vice versa. And I don't think that they ride that wave of tones quite as they like imagined they could. Nothing wrong with both tones, you can do both in one film, but when those tones are exaggerated to quite a degree, and like especially the comedy is very exaggerated, it kind of pulls you out of the message. It kind of pulls you out of the not necessarily the world, but what the characters want. And so it's not bad, but I think that they could have tightened up a little bit around tone. Overall, I really like most of the stuff I want to say is really, really good. I think that this film is not really that, it's not sort of like, you watch it and you think, it could be quite sort of like disposable, but I do like the world that it presents. I do like the message that it has, and the characters. I really like the characters. I really like Raya. I especially like Sisu, who I think Awkwafina is just brilliant in everything that she does. Even as like a massive cartoon dragon, she can do that as well. And it's mostly good. I really sort of enjoyed it. Would it be a film I go back to? Probably, but probably not for a while. I wouldn't say that it's a film that I would go back to over and over and over again. And I do agree with some of the criticisms leveled against it, but in truth, it's my review, my sort of thoughts at the end of the day. So I think that it's really, really, I think that it was really, I think it was good. Not sort of like really good, but I did enjoy it a lot. And enjoyment's a big part of, sort of like of your like film going and your sort of opinion on film. I think because it has everything. It has action, it has heart, it has comedy, which I'm of course like a mad comedy geek, so that's helps. So overall, I'd say Raya and the Last Dragon is very good. What would I give it out of 5? I mean, that's what you got to do on these things, right? You got to give things a score, which I don't usually do on my blog, but anyway, for the sake of the video, I'd give this I'd say a good 3.5. Say a good 3.5, maybe even a 4, because I do enjoy the message. I do enjoy the world, and I do enjoy the characters. Maybe a 4. I'll go with maybe even like a 3.8 or 9 or something like that. On the whole, very good. I would recommend it for, you know, families. Um, would I like recommend it to sort of film geeks? No, not really, but it was all it was good. It was good. And if you want to go see that, then as I said, it's on Disney Plus now streaming if you have a subscription. As I said before, you can find me on Twitter at Tom Button 19, and the Movie Mess Twitter as well, which is at mmess101. This has been Movie Mess 101. I've been Tom Button. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you all again soon. Bye bye.